Does that guy really like tea that much? Yes. Yes, I do.
Ooh, let's have a cup of tea.
As you can see, it is winter time, there is a Christmas tree up, it's very cold, and it's a perfect time to put your car away for winter. Now, I know a lot of people drive their cars all the time, all year round, especially the Mazda community, and they love to tell you that they drive it all year round and you don't. It's not my thing. Mine's a weekend car. I've got another car to use, which is far more comfortable. So it's now sort of time of year for me where I'm going to put the car away because I just don't use it now. So this is going to be a video for those of you who put your cars into hibernation through winter, as opposed to the ones that use it all the time. I used to store my car outside, and before I had a garage, it lived outside all its life. And judging by the underside of it, I have actually spoken to a previous owner who found me through YouTube, the magic of the internet, and he says that it was stored in a garage whilst he owned it and he was the first owner. For the last 18 months, I've not been able to store it inside, and part of that is because I didn't have a garage. Not everyone's got a garage. I used an external car cover, and it was only a £60 one from Halfords. Now, there's a lot of hate towards car covers in the community, which is sort of weird. I actually did a post on Instagram to work out whether this was justified or not, and to my surprise, the majority of you said they would consider a car cover outside, which just goes to show that covering your car up is more popular than leaving it uncovered. Before you put a car cover on, internal or external, you need to make sure that your car is clean. It can't be dirty because the dirt gets trapped in the cover and it rubs on your paint like sandpaper. So make sure your car is clean before you put the cover on. Also, make sure your car is dry. Don't clean it, then put the cover on because it will still be damp. You've got to make sure the car is dry so you're not trapping in the moisture. Most car covers are breathable, but really they're going to trap that moisture in. If your car's wet, and then the water's never going to get out from underneath the cover, and that's just going to lead to mold, so don't do that.
Also, it's worth noting that the cover will always leave white fluff on the roof of your car, so that's why a lint roller is perfect for this.
The alternative to using a car cover is to clean it, wax it, and then put like a half cover over the soft top. I didn't do this because I'm not a massive fan of detailing cars. It'd take me about a week to get all the scratches out of my car. I haven't personally experienced any of the swirl marks or the scratches from using the car cover, but people say it happens. I can't say I've ever experienced it. There's no clouding of the paint or anything. I put the cover on last year. I parked it away out of it's not in a windy spot. It was absolutely fine. You've just got to make sure that the straps are tight so that the cover can't flap about.
One of the main things is to make sure that you've got a clean interior of your car, and what I mean by that is you want it nice and clean for when you get back in, as well as you want to make sure there's no food in here, because food is going to attract mice or rats, and those rats are going to make a nice nest in your car. So I'm going to get rid of all the junk that I've got in here.
Come on, Henry. One of the things that you must do is take the handbrake off, because in cold weather, especially if you've parked it when it's been wet or damp or raining outside, the brake pads confuse to the brake disc, and everyone's probably experienced it at some point, especially after you clean a car and then you put the handbrake on. Because there's water on both of the contact surfaces, they basically fuse on. And it's a bit of a terrifying feeling when you've taken the handbrake off and you're trying to drive forwards and the car is acting as though it's got a handbrake on, and you hear a loud bang, and then it will let go. So make sure that you take your handbrake off. You can even chock up the wheels or put it in first. Just make sure to remember that it's in first when you turn the key and head out. So the biggest problem about storing a car usually is the battery. So you've got three options with the battery. You can either disconnect it, you can apply a trickle charger, or you can start it up every 2 weeks and make sure that there's charging there. Each of these has their pros and cons. If you're not confident with cars, disconnecting a battery is probably terrifying to you. Trickle chargers, you have to buy one to start with. They're probably the best bet for all year round storage, but starting it up every 2 weeks, if you've got a cover on it, you've then got to take the cover off, start it up, and that's a faff to do every 2 weeks. Trickle chargers, everyone recommends a C-Tech, I think it's MX-5 MX-5 or an MX-11, I think, are the two best. These are conditioners that basically charge your battery up to 100% and then condition it, cycle it to make sure that the cells inside it are always good. Or you could do what I do, which is to start the car up for like a good 15-20 minutes, let it idle, let it get warm, let the oil and the coolant circulate around as well. Realistically, you're getting the car operating and actually working as it should. The worst thing to do for a car really is to park it up and to never use it. So I prefer to start mine up and make sure that everything's circulating around the car.
If you're parking your car inside or outside, you don't want any moisture inside it. A lot of people go to like extreme lengths to stop moisture, and they use those silica gel pouches that you get with you know, a new pair of shoes. Do shoes come with them? I don't know. Other people, like, I've seen people put cat litter inside tights and then put the tights in the car. Whatever makes you happy. What I'm going to do this year is I'm just going to lower the windows a little bit when I park it, and that means that air can circulate and there should be no moisture because it's totally bone dry in here, because like I said earlier, don't drive it in the rain. Okay, so next thing for me is actually bringing the car inside. What I like to do is just go around the edges of the room and just make sure there's no screws or any little sharp bits that could puncture my tyre on the floor of the garage, because that's going to cause you a lot of problems.
So watching a few videos on how to store the car in winter, one of the ones I liked is Harry Metcalf on Harry's Garage. He's got a lot of experience with storing cars. I think he's got about 20 cars and 10 bikes inside this barn that he's got. He's tried everything. He basically says the best way is to keep the space warm. So if you keep that space warm, you're going to keep the moisture out. I'm bearing in mind that most people now have turned their garages into offices inside their houses. If you haven't got a garage because your desk and your laptop's in it, get rid of the desk and the laptop, get the car back in there. What are you doing? I had a go at insulating my garage, but I bought the wrong stuff. You need that foil stuff and stick it to the door. Then the final thing you can do to keep that heat in is actually to heat the garage. Now, obviously it massively depends what type of garage you've got. Some people have carports, and I would recommend putting a cover on a car that's underneath the carport. I reckon that's a pretty good way of protecting it. The only thing that I would think of doing in my garage, because it hasn't got a radiator in there, is to get like an oil radiator and then put that on a timer and then time that to kick in maybe middle of the night or just before it gets dark, and as it's getting cold in the middle of the night, put the oil radiator on and then get some heat in there. The only thing is those oil radiators are like 50p an hour to run. Depends on the wattage, but 500 watt is never going to heat a garage, so you probably need like a 2500 watt one. Next thing you're going to want to do is fill your petrol tank up. I've heard a lot of people saying leave it empty. Don't really get why you would do that. I guess not having fuel in it would mean that... No, don't really get why you would do it. I would say fill it all the way up, because you're not going to have any condensation forming inside the tank when it's full, because the petrol's going to make sure that there's no air in there. Therefore, you're not going to get a rusty fuel tank because it's full of petrol. Obviously, you can't fill it up and then leave it for a year. That's not a good idea. If you're going to do that, you probably want a fuel stabilizer, because that's going to make sure that the fuel doesn't oxidize inside your fuel tank. Another thing to look at is whether to cover your car up inside. I'm probably going to this year. You can use loads of different types of car covers or whatever you want. A £5 dust sheet that's big enough from Screwfix or Wix or something will do a perfectly good job of keeping the dust off. Tyre pressures or tyre cradles. If you've got loads of money and you're really into your cars, you could use some tyre cradles. I would just pump your tyre pressures up if you're worried about flat spots. I'm not going to recommend what tyre pressure you should pump it up to, because you could obviously cause yourself some problems there. Never exceed the tyre pressure that is on the tyre. Some people will say pump it up to X, Y, Z. I'm not going to do that. I just know that at work, when we received a car, often the cars would have high tyre pressures, and you had to, part of the PDI of that car was to lower the tyre pressure because it had a transport tyre pressure in it. The best option is to lift the whole car up on axle stands and not have any tyres touching the floor. I've seen people do it. I've seen them jack the cars up, put them on axle stands. That's a lot of effort, fair play. Some people have the jacks, the quick jacks that go underneath the sills and lift the car up. You know, again, decent idea that is. Takes all the weight off the suspension as well, so you're not compressing the spring unnecessarily. you've got to be really into your cars. One thing I like to do is to write down everything that I've done to the car to put it into the storage condition, and then fold that piece of paper over, stick it over your steering wheel, and then you've got a list of everything that you've done to the car before you put it into storage, so you're just going to reverse those things. Also, one thing that's up for discussion, a lot of people SORN their cars. In the UK, that means you have to register it as off the road. I think it stands for statutory off-road notification. And you're basically saying to the DVLA that this car is not used anymore, and they don't charge you tax to use it, as well as your insurance. You can, not have any insurance because you've declared it as off the road. I've never done that. I don't really see the point in doing it for me because the car really doesn't cost me that much to run, and I think I'd have to cancel my insurance policy and then restart it. Let me know your thoughts on SORNing a car down in the comments section below. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it's been somewhat informative, giving you an insight as to what I'm going to do this winter whilst I'm storing my car. I'd also like to remind people that I have an Instagram account @CarThought, and my Facebook page is @CarThoughtUK, and I'm uploading to my Instagram and Facebook story all day, every day. If you want content in between these videos, check me out on Instagram or Facebook. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching. Remember, righty tighty, lefty loosey, and I'll see you very soon. Cheers.